I feel like so much of investing is psychology, right?
Dude, 80% of it, 85% is behavioral. Like
Right.
the skills and the tools, man, like it's not that tough. It's harder to like control the greed and fear element of us that allow us to participate in the tools and the strategies. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
How would you say, I mean, let's just get started, dude. We're getting a rolling start here. Let's just like rock and roll.
Let's do it.
This is the Student of the Game podcast. And so we're
learning.
We're living and learning.
How is it though? I think this is I don't know if I want to call it a testament, but a realization that I have a lot of work to do on our friendship, because I just put it together that you have a podcast yesterday. That's a terrible example of
we're 3 episodes in. I haven't been going hard on the marketing, not even word of mouth. I'm kind of just, I'm rocking and rolling and just seeing what comes of it,
Okay, so this is new.
This is brand new.
Oh, that makes me feel better. I was like, how did I not know this? Like, how am I going to let my guy?
Well, what I was most stumped about was when I reached out to you and I was like, yo, bro, I need you to do a podcast, but maybe I just wasn't clear about it. And you were like, yeah, for sure. And then maybe you were thinking I wanted to do the content piece that we were talking about for you. Maybe that was what you thought I was like nudging you about, but I was like, dude, I need like I texted you a couple weeks back and I was like, I need an hour of your time. Can we do it? And you were like, yeah, for sure. And then we tried to schedule it, but I think maybe you were caught up thinking that we were going to do some commune content and you just hadn't wrapped your head around it or something like that.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Oh yeah. I thought it was fully commune stuff. Like, I thought you were just being like good about like, hey, I'm staying on this with you. Like, let's schedule this so we could do it. I had no, like, dude, I would have showed up for you that day, man. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. I guess I need to get a little better at like the super specific ask,
Yeah, I mean, me too.
Right.
Me too.
Right.
Or you know what? I don't even know if you should question yourself on this one. This could have been 100% me.
Well, you got a lot going on. So you got your ability to balance is super impressive. So you're like, you keep up with your Instagram better than me. You got a family. You have a 2-week-old, 3-week-old.
Look, it's like it's like I'm gracefully maintaining chaos.
Yeah, no,
it's just
true.
presented in a no. You know what? It's just I'm able to have people to rely on. That's as simple as it is. Like, you're able to manage more when you have a team that allows you to do so, right? I'm only able to manage as much as you're able to manage. We have the same amount of time in a day,
right?
It's just like when you look at, like, I always use like Elon as the example, right? Like, how does Elon, manage or run Tesla, which is like the most futuristic, insane car company of like my generation, along with trying to propel mankind to Mars, along with creating an underground tunnel, along with trying to link our phone to our brain, right? Like, he is human at the end of the day. How is he allowed to do all that? Dude, he's created a phenomenal team. That's right. All it is, dude. It's right. Just like, who can put better people around, like, who can put a better team around them than the next person next to you? And that's who just gets to do more, Right.
And it's also too, like, being able to rely on those team members with like your little passion projects and your little babies essentially is a really interesting topic to kind of have to remove yourself. I heard somebody say one time that, like, if somebody can do something 80% as well as you should delegate it to them, like
100%.
Yeah. And I have such a hard time doing that on my side of things, just because that's one thing that I realize I'm becoming a better delegator, but just so much of it is like, and that's probably more psychology and stuff like that, which is
what's hard for you? Is it letting up control? Is it the feeling of you?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of that. It's probably a little bit of the control aspect. It's probably, as a music manager, so much of like on the management side for my clients, my name is on it. So I want to make sure that I'm inserted in it, and it's not like this idea that you're buying into and it's all my assistants and day-to-day managers. I want to make sure that it's me, that, because that's what you're paying for essentially. I don't want it to be this like factory and this idea that you're paying for. But I guess every client is a little different, and some of them might appreciate that to an element or to a degree. But yeah, I think let's talk a little bit about your team. Can we do that? Can we just start there? Like currently?
Yeah, but I have a question for you.
Okay.
Well, are you into Jordans at all?
Yeah, I love them. Kidding?
Yeah. So do you lose any love for Jordans by not getting to personally meet Jordan, or by Jordan not personally handing you the shoe? Does that bring down your desire for having them?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So then why would somebody who loves what you do be offset that you have people helping you do what you do better?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Look, I might never be Elon Musk, right? And I am so diehard Tesla. I don't need to physically know him because I'm able to resonate and connect with him beyond, the one-on-one. Now, what you're saying, I think, is that like, well, part of what you do is a service as well, right? And you in offering a service, you want the person that is a part of it with you to get like your full attention, right?
Right.
But the thing that you need to remember is, by you managing every little thing and taking 100% control of you, they're not truly getting 100% of your strengths and what makes you you, because you're wasting time and energy managing the things that you don't do best, right? So think about like, where will the better experience lie? Getting 100% of your strengths, or 40% of your strengths, 30% of this distraction, 20% of this distraction. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're diluting your specialty by managing all.
So true. Wow.
Right though? It's interesting.
Completely.
We all struggle with it. It's not just, we all struggle with it, right? It's like, in some case, it almost shows how like authentic you are, right? Like, look, this is me. I don't want to give you anything else. That's not me staying true to myself, So like, I think it does show character, which, is awesome about this. But it's really, the things that hold us back are just like a small little change in perspective. It's just, we're looking at one thing a little bit differently, and then that makes it our reality, not knowing that like just a little bit of a switch, and oh my gosh, maybe this is actually better this way. Maybe I was just thinking one way and had myself convinced that was the best way. Maybe it's not,
True. Yeah. I think in the client services business, it's very much about how each specific client, and I think having a really open line of communication and getting that feedback, which is tough because we're all so sensitive about not only our job itself, but how we approach our job. We all think we're the expert on that. But sometimes, especially in the client service business, is like, how can I best serve you? Like, this thing over here is so important to me, and I think it's important to you, but if you don't give a fuck, like, maybe I should completely drop that, because it's like, there's so many challenges and so many things over here, but you don't even care about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think it's really about like keeping that super transparent line of communication in order to deliver at it. And I think that can kind of help with scaling. Yeah. Cause I agree. I think there's certain things that I think. Yeah.
Right. It's like, look, I get what you're, dude, we dealt with this in the skate industry. Like, there were skate managers as well, and like, where people would go wrong is if like, I'm the manager, right? And you're the skater. I'm like, Nolan, look, I'm going to take your career. I'm going to take it to the next level. I'm going to make you do more money. I can do all this for you, right? And you're like, hell yeah, Mikey, let's do this. And then like the next day, basically I just put you into my system. You never see me again. That's what you're trying to avoid, because that is buying into something that isn't true. Right.
Right.
So if that's one end of it, but then the other one is everyone who calls me, I answer right away. And you get 100% of me no matter what I'm doing. Well, now you've only pinpointed kind of polar opposites, but there's pros and cons to both. So how do you kind of find the balance between the two and go, okay, you are going to get my attention. I'm going to get back to you in this amount of time every time you call, but this is the system in which I need to manage so that I could be effective in, helping you out when it's time sensitive, and making sure when I go to do things, I'm in a position to do them to the best of my ability. So it's not so much you get all of me or none of me. It's like I'm creating a system so that you get me quickly. Maybe it's not, I answer my phone at 2:30 in the morning on demand, but it's like, hey, this is when I'm available. And if it's an emergency, this is your route to get here. And I'm going to succeed with you,
Right. No, I love
because
that.
at the end of the day, you got to grow. We all have to grow. Like, even like the people you're representing, like if you're not growing, and in theory, they're not growing, and they want to be collectively with a team that's moving up. Right.
Absolutely. You're
Anyway, we
taking
kind
me
of
to
just like,
school,
we
dude.
kind of just
That's
ran,
why I'm here.
we kind of
That's
just
why I'm
ran into
here.
this podcast. I was like,
Just
Nolan,
drops
what's up?
mic.
You're like,
That's
dude.
it. That's it. It's a wrap. There we go.
No, but you know what though? The truth is, like, that's the easy part is talking about it. Like the hard part is actually putting it together. That's always the difficult part, right? Like you could talk about the utopia of how like easy it is to scale, and then start going through not only finding good people that you trust, but also, the new challenges that you're going to find in yourself, some of these insecurities of control or value, or, am I now disposable? Now you have to work through all the, I mean, dude, there's always crap you got to deal with. It's hard for all of us,
Right. Each level presents a new set of challenges, but
That's right.
hopefully by leveling up, you've gained the tools to, solve those problems and stuff like that.
That's right. You just equipped yourself to be able to solve harder problems, but you're always solving them. Or
Right.
problems are always presenting themselves, maybe is a better way to look at it.
Right.
All right, let's get into this thing, dog.
Dude, no, we're in.
Right?
We're all the way in, dude. Well, no, I guess let's start there. I mean, I think your story is cool. Like you started out as a professional skater. You founded a beer company that had an exit. And then now you're a founder for a real estate investment firm. Is that the right definition of Commune?
Yeah, it's funny. We're still trying to like find an actual definition. I mean, really, at like the business side, we're an investment group or an investment firm that manages investment funds. We have a bunch of investors that come together and kind of under this belief that we can buy more together. We're stronger together, and so I could maybe only buy a 6 unit on my own, but if all my boys come together, we can go buy a 400 unit. Now we're all participating in a bigger asset or a better opportunity than we could individually. So that's the company. That's what we do. We focus on multifamily apartments, but it's really just like, how can we all come together and get more?
Right. And you guys also like via Instagram have been doing like a lot of education, which is cool. You're released like regularly releasing like just little tidbits of gems and stuff. I was scrolling through, like I was just on a deep dive last night when I was preparing for this, and they're just so like I was like I wanted to just I like literally have so many notes about dang near every single thing you were talking about. But it's interesting. I think to me a hot topic that like you and I have had several sidebars about was like when I saw you had a little clip that went viral about talking about how a single family home is, you don't view a single family home or the home you live in as an investment.
Yeah.
Do you want let's just start there.
Yeah, that one, people have feelings about that one. It's like telling a mom breastfeeding is better or worse than formula. It was like, house is an investment. What? But
Right.
no, I mean, it's where can we begin with this? There's a certain strategy that goes into investing. Like, I think like one misconception we have, or is natural for us to have, is that when you're investing, you're gambling, or you're pretty much just like taking money and like hoping you make money back. But that is not investing. There's a fine line between speculating and investing, right? And so what I mean with a home not being an investment, there's kind of two parts to it. And it's one, when you buy a home, we are just naturally told that you're going to buy a home and you're able to sell it for more when you want to sell it, right? Well, that's a speculation in itself. There's no strategy or plan, or we have not put together any type of investment thesis in which it shows us that we're going to be able to buy a house that we live in at this price and be able to sell it at that price, right? And the reason I really experienced this is I bought a home. I bought a home when I was 23 because I was told that owning a home was the best investment I could ever make. And I sold my house 15 years later. So I sat on my home for 15 years. In theory, that should be a long enough timeline to rebound. I made $0, zero money. And so it really, I think, strengthened this view that the only reason I thought it could sell for more is that there was no real reason behind it. And when you look at investing, like for example, when we go to buy an apartment building, we know the return, we know how we're going to create the return and what the return is going to be in a certain amount of timeline, right? And there is some variation in if that number becomes, less or more, but we know if it's a good investment prior to even moving forward on the deal. You just don't do that when you buy a home. You buy a home because you like the area, or it's good schools, or in my case, my wife like really likes a certain design. It's a different reason in why you buy. And so that's why I've always kind of been hung up with owning a home, is I think it's a full speculation. I don't think it's an investment. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Now, after like saying that and putting out that piece of content, what was like some of the backlash from people who are educated and have had success with single family like real estate investments?
Well, the hard thing about it is you have 2 or 3 minutes to talk about a piece on social media. So you can't really go that in depth. So, a lot of times people will say things like, yeah, but the real estate market always goes up. Okay. Yeah, that's a valid point. But if you don't have a timeline on when you're holding an asset, you're now guessing that you'll be able to sell as the price went up. So what if you bought, let's use the last recession. What if you bought a home in 2003 and something happened in 2012 and you were forced to sell? You did not sell your home for more than you bought it for. And then to take it a step further, now we're talking about areas in which appreciation, you even participate in appreciation. There's a lot of locations throughout the nation, they don't even move like somewhere like Florida or California, like what we're talking about, So there's a lot of variations to it, but I think the big one, and where the majority of the pushback comes from, is we've all been told that owning a home is a great investment, but we've never been told why it's a great investment. Like, truthfully, why is it a great investment? Has anybody really ran the numbers to go, okay, I'm going to buy this house for $400,000. And, we have this idea, well, you own your home and you don't have to pay rent. And that's the beauty of it. Okay. So a $400,000 home that might have a mortgage of, I don't know what, $1,800. So I'm going to spend 30 years or 15 years or however long it takes me to pay off my debt to have $400,000 into a house so that I don't have to pay an $800 mortgage. To me, that type of return is so much easily achievable in other assets. So now you compare the home to other assets, even in real estate, and I go, I don't know if owning a personal home is that great. for an investment reason. Now, the other half of it is there is a lot of good things about owning a home. Like I just think that's not necessarily financial reasons. It's more individual and sorry, I don't know if that's money reasons. I think it's more family or individual reasons.
Right. And you, I mean, are you comfortable with talking about your personal situation? Like you said, you rent now, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
And the what you mentioned to me too is like the down payment, like, you know, let's say you're like buying $1 million house, which is like very middle of the road in California. Like you're buying $1 million home and 20% down on that is 200K. It's like the appreciation you're going to see on that 200K versus in a different asset. That's like really kind of like what you're judging. Cause it's funny because I'm so curious about this because, and this is purely for selfish reasons. It's just like, I am like in that space now where I'm like, oh, I'm like looking on Zillow every single day and I'm obsessed with real estate and learning about the market and watching the market and just watching all these different things happen. And I'm like, and you're just one of my advisors and smarter, older homies who just like schools me all the time. And like to see how you've kind of transitioned as someone who is like, you know, you're a real estate investor. So it's like, but you're even looking at it like, and here's the thing, you probably know top to bottom. It's like you could buy a distressed piece, fix it up just how you like it, make it exactly how you want it, get some appreciation that way. But nope, you're choosing to rent at this point of your life.
So yes, I'm choosing to rent. And I gotta be very clear with everyone. I will probably not rent for the rest of my life. I will probably continue to own homes. And that's because I mean, there's more that goes into these decisions than just myself now. I have my wife and we have kids and my wife wants to own a home. There's reasons to owning that are really important to her. So that's where I'm challenged to go, okay, remove the investing return on my money brain and start looking at the reasons why we're doing this that aren't going to be financial. And it's a struggle for me. Like if it were up to me and it was just me, I'd rent for the rest of my life. Like I would just rather put that money into assets that make me more money. I mean, that's really kind of my goal at the end of the day. How do I maximize how much my money's making with the least amount of risk? You know, but it's not that black and white.
Right.
Life has a lot more. There's a lot more that goes into decision making, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I saw you another like interesting social like misconception or just weird piece of information is like the whole college thing, which is totally, I think, reaching a breaking point.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like with my personal journey, the only reason I really wanted to go to college, well, there was a couple of reasons, but the only reason I really wanted to go to college was because I wanted to play basketball at the next level. So once I got out of high school and I went to community college to play ball, that's like right around the same time I fell in love with like music and the music industry and realized like at about 18 or 19, I figured out that I wanted to be a music manager. And that was like what I was going to chase. I realized pretty quickly, like once I got to done playing basketball, I started taking all these like courses that were like adjacent to something I might need to learn to be an effective music manager.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started realizing like it was kind of a roundabout way to doing it, you know, and it wasn't the Instagram era. This is probably 2009, 8, 9. And so it wasn't this era where all this information and all these experts in every single field were just like spewing like heat at you, you know, where it's just like, oh, wow, really? I don't need to go to school. Wow, really? I read this one book at the time. I mean, it was still Facebook and Twitter around. So you could definitely find like bits and pieces, but it just wasn't the YouTube, like talk at the camera era, podcast era. But I read this book called The Education of Millionaires. And I kind of forget what the book is about, to be honest, but I remember it got me rethinking the college investment. And I remember at the time I was like in community college. So like my parents were like helping me pay me through that. And it, you know, it's pretty cheap. But I remember in the time where I wrote this like one like late night Facebook update that said something like, I don't know, kind of cryptic, but it kind of got a lot of backlash at the time. But I said, it's interesting how we go to college to kind of avoid what we're actually trying to do with our lives.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, so I just kind of started thinking about it as an investment, and if it was actually going to be valuable to like what I knew I wanted to do and what I was going to pursue. So can you talk a little bit about that and just like your thoughts on that? Because obviously you're like pro skater out of high school, you know, first round draft pick, like LeBron James, straight to the pro skate leagues.
So this could be a whole podcast on this topic.
Right. And if it is, it is, you know?
Yeah. So look, I had the belief that if you didn't go to college, you couldn't make money. And I'm an 80s baby, you know, graduated 2001. That was definitely the overall message, that if you wanted to really have a nice life, you had to go to college. Like there was no way to do it without it. And so when I became a pro skateboarder, and college kind of wasn't in my plan, I just felt like I had to find some type of like other way, you know, around the side or, you know, around the back to get to where I wanted to go, because that was just the message that was told to me. When I experienced that I could do it without college, then it really made me wonder why do we believe that you have to go to college, but is that really true? If I was able to do it, I'm a skateboarder with like really no education when it comes to business, well, then doesn't that mean everybody else should be able to do it? And so then I just started paying attention more and more to my friends that had gone to school and where they lined up with myself and kind of what the ultimate return was. And then when we started having kids, and our kids are young, but you know, now these thoughts are going through our mind. Do we put a fund together for the kids to go to college? Is this even something we care about? And this is where I'm at the moment. This may change, but this is where I'm at the moment. I think the idea of school makes sense. I think the idea that you give yourself education and, in theory, tools that you can take and then go implement into the world that help you make money, right? That sounds like a no-brainer. The challenge now is kids go to school without the idea of what they want to be or what they want to do. So school becomes the place that they discover what they want to do. And 9 times out of 10, they're taking courses before they realize truly what they're here to be. And so that's why you hear these horror stories of kids like, you know, hey, I went to 4 years of college and, you know, this is my degree. And like, I'm like doing this now that has nothing to do with my degree. Did I really have to waste 4 years and potentially a bunch of money, right? Then you have the other element to it of our parents. Like, our parents can put so much pressure on us to go to a certain school because it brings some type of social acceptance to them around their friends, right? So now the kid who's going, yeah, I do want to go to school, and the parents going, I want you to go here, and now the investment just went from, I don't know, $15,000 to $200,000, right? And now you really need to start kind of thinking about taking on that type of debt, and if you're going to see the return from it, right? Because now student lending is a whole different issue. It's a debt that doesn't go away. It's with you for life, and they will give you this money at will. That's terrifying to me. So I think there's a lot of things wrong with school, and I think there's a lot of things wrong with our belief in what we can achieve with it. And so where I'm at now with the whole school thing, I think when you graduate, you should take a year or 2 years off, no matter what, and go experience the world, go travel, go get an internship, start trying to discover what you want to be. And when you have an idea, try to go work for somebody, even if it's for free, because you're trying to decide where you're going to go. And once you know where you're going to go, now you have such a better gauge to go, okay, if I go to school, that is going to directly impact the amount of money I make. Or I don't think it's going to change anything, so I'm going to go to a trade school. I'm going to go down a different approach. It just gives you more clarity to actually make a decision that is going to affect you for the rest of your life. So I think a gap year, a leap year is really important. And I think like the social status of a school, I think parents play too much or put too much pressure on the kids for having to go somewhere that I don't think makes a difference on how much they make.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's funny because it's interesting because the people that we were listening to, I think internet era, Facebook era, web 2.0 or whatever you want, social media, the people we were listening to were our guidance counselors. They were our, coaches, parents, friends, parents. Like our networks were much smaller like when you or I were growing up. So I think it's an interesting concept because now all of a sudden we also have access to literally experts in every single field giving us the tools of the trade really for free in order to get where we want to go. So yeah, it's so interesting because as our parents are imparting on us what they think is going to put us in a better position than they were. So if they didn't have a 4-year degree or they didn't have this, they'd see the people who were doing better around them. And it was maybe people that had those things. But yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like very much you have to consider the source when it comes to information.
That's the world we live in now, right? We're the age of information. So how do you weed out the information? One thing I think is, when it comes to school, like there will always be the argument that certain professions you have to go to school for, right? Okay, fine, we accept that. But one thing that we don't equate or put enough importance on is what impact is school going to have on the child beyond their career? And I'm like you see like the belief system in this new generation, and it kind of baffles me that I think school is meant to teach kids how to think differently and to articulate their belief system, yet every single kid that comes out of college has the same exact belief system. It really doesn't teach any type of diversity. So I think like you're seeing a greater impact play out than just you going to school to learn something. You're seeing like philosophies and belief systems created that, depending on who you are, that might be more detrimental than, setting your kid up to make money, if that makes sense.
Right. I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about that too, because he's a professor, and it's like, I think that, he just talks about how the university system and the belief system around it is so one thing.
Yeah, it's cult-like.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting topic.
And then you go to this one, right? That's what I'm saying. There's so many places for this to go, and then people listening are like, "Dog, you guys are going to some tangents." But like, I don't believe that school teaches you how to make more money. I'm convinced of it. They teach you a book smart or a book knowledge, but I don't think they teach you how to go out and earn and then take that money and make more money. And I think a lot of us want to know, I want to make money. I'm going to work because I'm going to make money, right? And I don't know if school does that. I think they miss that element of it.
Right. It does. It teaches you to be good in a system, which is like what our economy has thrived on, is just like, from the Industrial Revolution, right? It's like, can you work in a factory effectively? But like, we're so much more in the era of, you can have a startup and you can, create exponential wealth for yourself and your family in different ways in America. And that's like one of the beautiful things. That's so interesting. Cause school is not teaching you about assets versus liabilities. It's not, especially public school, like through high school, it's not teaching you all of these things. I remember my parents' way of saying this would be like, it's crazy that in high school, they don't teach you how to balance a checkbook. And I think they might have when they were in school, maybe, or maybe they didn't. And still to this day, obviously they don't, but it's like, debt is a really, really interesting thing too, because there's so much psychology behind it. And school does teach you about how society works in an interesting way. It teaches you, I think there are good things about it that are character building, but Yeah, one of my one of my close buddies ended up becoming like a public high school teacher in Ventura, where we grew up. And he recently, he like his kids, refuses to put his kids in public school just because he's seen it up close and personal. And
Dude,
he's
my
like,
kids aren't going either. They're in
yeah,
private school, man.
right. And it's so funny because he was just like, someone who obviously is doing his best as a teacher in that system. And since he's switched careers, but he had a lot of pride in his high school and where he went and where he grew up. But he just, at some point, he was just like, okay, like the direction this is going is not moving in the direction that he's trying to like take his family, which is, it's really, really interesting, man. It's really interesting. So at this point, what would you tell you? So you're going to tell your kids like, look, take a year off, really figure out what it is that you want to do. And that's how I advise kids as well. Like, I remember, the one thing I think that's interesting about athletics is growing up playing sports at a high level and playing with like kids that were star athletes and had so much charisma and were so good at what they did. It's funny to me because I always viewed them as stars. And I was just like, it's funny to me that they didn't take that charisma and transition it into a real world thing. It's like, here they are at 30 still trying to chase their pro sports dream, when really was like, and for me, I always had like being a 6-foot white guy, point guard that played, junior college basketball. I think the writing was on the wall pretty early. Like, hey, I'm not going to the NBA anytime soon. But there was things where I'm like, when I watched Jerry Maguire when I was a kid for the first time, I was like, I want to be that guy. He's still in the game. He's still very much part of what's going on, but he's not an athlete. He's finding a way to be involved. And that's one thing I think that's cool about music management is that we're involved in the creativity of the artist business, but we're kind of a little bit operating outside of it. And
yeah,
I think that, and maybe you could say I'm dreaming small and I should have but to me, it's like, sometimes I think you got to be realistic about your God-given talents and, apply yourself wherever you think that those are going to be most of service,
Yes. Yeah. And I think we have how would you call it? We're challenged in a sense by, we always think like where we're at is as far as we get to go, right? Like, oh, did I give up on my dreams because I'm just doing this now, instead of thinking, you know what I'm doing now is just getting me to the next place I'm going to go. This is all part of my journey of who I become, right? And so if that's the belief system, which what I think it is, then what you should be telling yourself is, I'm on my path to living out my purpose. It's not, oh, I let go of my dream and I didn't become a pro baseball player or a pro basketball player. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in this path of where I'm headed, of living my purpose. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just a better way to look at it, because your life is far from over, right? We can't, there's not enough time yet to look back and go, yeah, Nolan, you fell short. You fell short of your purpose. You've got tons of more time to play out. And then we could go, okay, you did it. You lived out to your potential. Or then you can go, yeah, maybe I did let go of my dreams. It's too soon to say for all of us,
Right. So being a pro skateboarder, you started earning like a salary at an early age, right? And in our previous conversations, you've mentioned things like you found a financial advisor really, really early on. Can you explain that process a little bit and how that happened?
Yeah, so I told my parents I was going to be a pro skateboarder, and they panicked. They're like, wait, what? I thought you were going to college. And in this kind of moment of trying to, I guess how I looked at it is, I'm trying to find a way to make my parents feel comfortable, and my parents are trying to find a way to be comfortable, and me going down a different path. One of the things that they strongly recommended, which was kind of more of like an ultimatum, was you need to go get help. And the help that you need to get is from this guy, Randy. And Randy managed my parents' money. He owned a multifamily office, which meant he manages a bunch of different families' money. And my parents were like, hey, look, you get him to help you, okay, like we'll feel better about it. And so, I went into Randy's office when I was 19, and, he's in a suit and I'm in this, and, he starts asking me like how he can help me. And I was like, well, I'm trying to be a pro skateboarder, and my parents are terrified and I don't know anything about money. So like, I need you to like, put me in a position to retire in the next 5 or 6 years. And he's like, what? Okay, well, let me know more. And as he was kind of asking, about my plan and my career, I think he quickly realized, okay, a pro skateboarder is not a pro baseball player or a pro football player. They don't make that much money. And there's so many variables. I don't know how long he truly has. So he said, okay, look, I'm going to help you. I didn't make enough for him to help me. I didn't even make close to enough for him to help me. But kind of what he did was he was like, look, I'm going to teach you about money. I'm going to teach you all the things that you need to get in place. So even if this doesn't work out, you're going to be in such a better position, down the road. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. And as, he started working with me, skateboarding started getting bigger. And then, I think I started to realize, and so did he, that, oh my gosh, like we actually have an opportunity to put myself in a position where if my career ends, like I might be able to get to financial freedom. And so then he started.
So that was the goal. The financial freedom was the goal.
I basically told him, look, my talent lies in riding a skateboard, and I don't know who's going to pay me for that ability once I'm not good at it anymore. So I need you to make it so that if I can't skate anymore, I don't have to work. I didn't know what that meant, but that's what I said.
Right. And what were some of those early, because that's a really assertive thing for you to kind of figure out. And so what were those early things?
It was a naive thing, right? It was just, I don't even know if I knew financial freedom. I just said, hey, I need you to put me in a position where I don't have to work anymore,
Right.
And so, in the beginning, and look, just to give you guys context, when I sat in this meeting with him, I was making, I don't know, $1,500 a month. Yeah, about $1,500 a month. At 20, I was making $40,000 a month. So, think about that. A kid walks in making $2,000 a month going, I need you to make me retire. I need to be able to retire,
Right.
So basically what he did for me in the beginning, it was.
Wait, you said $40,000 at 20, you're making $40,000 a year. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I think it was like.
Cause I was like, wait, there's a crazy significant jump there. I was like, what happened?
No. Dude, honestly, I didn't start making more than $200,000 a year until, dude, I had been pro for 10 years. Right. It was like, just to give it context, like this is, a lot of people might hear, oh, well, dude, $100,000 a year is a ton of money. Well, in California, as a self-contracted athlete that's trying to retire in 10 years, it's nothing,
right?
So basically what he did for me was, he started working on my behaviors, my spending habits, and really started teaching me the importance of learning how to be responsible when I wasn't making that much money, so that I had all the disciplines and tools in place so that I could manage when I was making a lot of money. And, I think for us, we just always go, oh yeah, I'll figure it out when I'll get on a budget once I start making a lot of money, or I'll just figure it out once this thing starts working. But we don't realize that, added responsibility means added discipline. And if we don't have the discipline to begin with, we're not going to have the discipline once things start moving. So, it was, in the beginning, it was simple as you need to spend less than you make, right? The importance of that. And then it was like, the importance of having an emergency fund, and then making sure I wasn't in debt, and then building a cash reserve. And then once I got into a position of having enough capital to invest in things, then he started introducing what different investments were out there, and, how to evaluate, a risk reward, and what I even had enough capacity to manage, et cetera, et cetera. So the beginning stages were just build cash flow,
Right. for someone out there that maybe doesn't have like a access to a Randy, how, like, if you were in that situation today, how would you kind of reverse engineer it? I mean, I know there's so much software, there's so many apps, but there's also, the thing is like, there's something so valuable about someone who's been there before and been very successful at it, who like can look you in the face and say like, these behaviors of yours are detrimental. You know what I mean? Because a lot of us, especially if we don't have those advisors and those people that are telling us, you know, we think things are normal, or we think that these increased lifestyle changes or spending habits are justified because we made more money this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you advise someone that's like, you know, maybe going through that, but just doesn't have direct access to somebody like Randy?
So, so there's how could I say it? There's good and bad in this answer. The good is going to be there's enough people out there that you can get help, and they don't need to be an advisor, right? We're talking about like the age of information. Information is accessible now for everybody. So as far as, you know, learning about some of these behaviors that you need to start working on, if you have a phone or you have a computer, you have access to it. Now the challenge becomes how do you make sure the person that you're getting information from is giving you valuable information, right? I think that becomes the challenge right now. What I would say is the person that you're getting information from, you need to do due diligence on that person and make sure they're living a life that you even want to emulate, right? Because information is just information, but it becomes powerful when somebody is able to take that information, create action with it, and then actually live what they're representing or what they're giving you. That's kind of where the challenge lies. You know, if there's people out there that do a really good job, if you're somebody who struggles with like debt, Dave Ramsey is really good as far as behavioral finance when it comes to getting you out of debt. But with him, in my eyes, he kind of stops at once you're out of debt. And then you need to find another person when you start going on what I call the offense, which is investing and starting to build, you know, an investment portfolio. I don't offhand know of, I haven't done enough due diligence to know who's doing this online well.
Well, you are with Commune.
Well,
I would say to a degree.
Yeah, the reason I said that, like, we don't offer it as a service. Like, you know, you
Right.
could look, if you go onto our social media, all the content we put out is for this. It's all about basically behavioral finance, putting yourself in the position to invest, and then we start talking about investing as well. So you can always come to our platforms to learn. We just don't. Our company isn't taking somebody and working with them hands-on, or at least yet.
Right. And that space is really interesting too, because, you know, financial advisors are like, you know, we might even need a disclaimer, like, we are not certified financial advisors. It's like, it's funny because, and then like the more I've learned about it over the last, you know, 4 years since I read Tony Robbins' book, Unshakable. And I really liked that one. And that got me into like just interested in and studying like index funds and how those work. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting conflicting information out there. And the behavior portion of it though is just so interesting to me because for me, you know, a lot of time, like at each like increase in salary or pay or net worth, a lot of people imply that should also mean the lifestyle increases. But then if something drastic happens, because your behavior is tracking towards this new lifestyle, it becomes really hard to change your behavior. It becomes really, and then that's how you go broke, like fast, you know what I mean? And so I'm like always so skeptical, and I always try to challenge myself about, you know, if there is something that it's going to be like a lifestyle increase or like whatever, I want to challenge like where that's coming from, you know, and if it's justified, you know?
So I'm the more and more I I don't know, call it grow or learn, etc., the more it solidifies this idea that the more you know about yourself, the better you can be, not only with money, relationships, etc. That's all it is. It's understanding what you're good at and what you're bad at, and ultimately what your true insecurities are, right? And I think that's the interesting thing about money. And you start talking about like the behavioral side of it. There's a lot of fears that we have with money that might have come from, you know, how our parents were with money, or something that happened when we were young that like built this belief system when it came to money. And a lot of times we never go deep enough to kind of peel apart the true insecurity we're having, right? And like an example of it would be, if you ask somebody like their biggest fear when it comes to money, right? 9 times out of 10, it has something to do with a world without money, right? Oh, I just have no money. I can't pay my rent. I won't be able to like pay for food. I have no money, right? And we usually end it there and go, yeah, my greatest fear is just not having money. Well, why do you want to get rich? Because I just don't ever want to be in a position of not having money. And that becomes our insecurity. But as you dig deeper and you go, well, are you really concerned that you're going to be homeless, like on the streets? And then somebody will go, no, I mean, I think I'll be able to have a place over my head. Like it might be really small or shitty, but I should have a roof over my head. Okay, well, are you worried that like you won't be able to feed yourself, that you're going to starve? Well, no, like I think I'll be able to feed myself. Okay, so what's the deeper underlying issue? Is it, you know, a feeling of embarrassment that your friends and your kind of circle are going to see you downgrade and potentially look like you're not successful? Or are you going to feel like a failure to your kids? Like there's always a deeper issue. And until you address the true issue, you're not going to be able to solve any of these problems we're talking about. Like, why do you overspend? Or why are you such a saver that like, you know, you can't put yourself in a position to take risks to grow? That's why it always comes down to the behavior, where you can tell somebody all the strategies and tools, but if they don't know what's truly holding them back from acting on them, then the tools and strategies don't matter. They're not going to see the result that somebody who is aware of what's going on is going to see. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
something like, and this is something Randy was big on me with. He was like, look, you're going to make more money. Your challenge is going to be to not spend more money, but it's not that simple, right? I can't just tell you, don't spend more as you make more. You're going to learn, or have to learn, how to not compare yourself to others. When you're with your friends and you're seeing them do like, you know, buying cars and buying houses, you need to be comfortable with you so that you don't feel the need to validate yourself by matching what they're spending, right?
Right.
So these were all me issues that I had to go through. And it was like, once I understood that, then I was able to make more money and still live like I was broke, right? So it's just,
Right.
we forget to address, or we don't know to address the true issue. And something like spending more as we make more, 9 times out of 10 has to do with keeping up with the Joneses, right? It's like trying to maintain this image to others that you're successful or important or valuable.
Completely. Um, like that relationship with Randy and those conversations that he had, like, and how he still advises you to this day, correct?
Yeah, and he's my partner too now in the business.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So like what did he teach you about as you leveled up? Obviously it's like it's more about what you're saying, the psychology behind it, and you being okay with yourself. But, you know, for example, you had a reasonable lucrative exit with St. Archer Brew, right? And like from that point, like I could imagine that you get a windfall and you're like, woohoo, you know what I mean? Like I want that, because you know what I mean? So because I think
Okay.
to a degree, a better quality of life is on the priority list to a degree, right? It's like a better quality of life, a nicer house, access to, you know what I mean? Access to different things and places and stuff. Anyways, yeah, I'll let you go.
So in the beginning, it was really what he was trying to do was put myself in a position to have cash, because cash is opportunity, right? Once I had built up, let's call it a cash reserve, or an opportunity of a cash full of, what would you call it? Like a chest full of like opportunity cash or whatever, right? Once I hit that point, what I thought he was going to do was say, okay, now you start investing in stocks and bonds and real estate. And that's not what he told me. And I was kind of thrown off by it. Once I had enough cash, he said, we want to start looking for ways to invest in you. And you and I had this conversation the other day. The first thing he told me was, we need to figure out how to make you more money. And ultimately, your income is your greatest wealth building tool, right? The more income you make, the more money you get to put towards investments. So as we're sitting on this money, what are ways that we can invest in yourself that's going to translate in you making more money, which then is going to lead to you being able to invest in more passive opportunities. And so at that point, it was as simple as this. He's like, Mikey, how do you make more money? And at that time, my answer was, I need sponsors to pay me more. And he was like, okay, well, what's going to make a sponsor pay you more? And I said at this time, well, the better I am at skating, the more kids that are going to like me, which in theory should create more demand for myself, which then should allow me more leverage to negotiate with my sponsor. So he was like, okay, how do you get better at skateboarding? And so at that point, it's right when like skate parks started coming up. And, I was telling him, I was like, well, look, it's hard to get better at skateboarding now, because when we go skate parks, every kid knows who we are. And so, it's like we're always putting on a demo. We can't just go and try something that we don't know how to do, because a kid doesn't want to see us mess up. They want to see us land things. So he was like, okay. So I'm like, so dude, we could get a private skate park. Like, what if we get a warehouse and put a private skate park in here? And that's my like training facility to get better at skating. He's like, okay, that's one option. And then another one was, what if we get a filmer, and this filmer's around you 24/7? So the amount of content you're creating increases, and then demand increases. Okay, filmer. And it was like all these little ways in which I thought we're going to give myself more demand. And then it led to companies paying me more. So that was the beginning of it. And then.
And did it pay off?
Oh yeah.
See, that's
totally
dope.
did.
That's so dope, because Randy just is having like that intuition of like, he's not your manager, but he's going like, the levers you can pull. And it's funny because I try to compare that to both my clients, my artists' lives, but also myself. Like, what levers can I pull that might be a financial investment or a time investment that might feel like, this is a little unnecessary, but at the same time, it's going to provide that value. That's really, really interesting and cool that he had that intuition.
Well, it is funny, man. When you think about it, the greatest return will always be in yourself, right? If it's like I just saw Warren Buffett quote the other day that he spent $100 taking I'm gonna blank it on the person's some course that taught you how to network with great people, right? And Warren Buffett's going, it's the best $100 I've ever spent. The return I got on that $100 was greater than anything I have now, which is 70 something $billion. So
he did this. He did this course recently, or he did it back in the day?
No, it was a long time ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But like with Randy's what would you call it? Randy's thought, which I completely agree with now, was okay, get sponsors to pay you more. And then once I increase that income, then two things happen. I had money now to put towards passive investments, which meant I'm investing in this and I'm personally not doing anything. My money is what's making me money. And then I had money to put into investing in myself again, except I was in a position where I had maxed out what my sponsors could pay me, right? So I'm making as much as I can make from sponsors. I've got money now to invest in myself. Well, what's the next option? And then it was, okay, well, why don't you start looking at starting companies that you can market and you can build so that you yourself are adding to the investment, your money's working, and that will be a greater return than you see in something like a passive investment. And that's when kind of the business world started opening up. And then there was St. Archer, which was an active investment for me. It wasn't a passive one. The return I made on St. Archer was greater than, the storage units I was investing in. But all of this was to put myself in a position to have more money to invest in passive investments. And so then after St. Archer, it was like I was in a position where I was able to take a bigger position investing in passive investments. But, I'm always of this belief of, okay, well, I love that investment, but how do I maximize my investments? That's always in myself. And that's really what, as far as like the investment strategy was, start Commune Capital. Now, this is the next company that I put my money into that I can help build to see the greatest return in my dollars. And then after Commune, I have a greater pot to then put into more passive investments and then move on to the next opportunity that I can see how I can continue investing in myself.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I want to touch on the St. Archer moment for a second, because I think it's really interesting, because I think when you entered into that, what year was that when you guys started that company?
The idea was 2011, and then we started it May of 2012.
Right. And I think that is really interesting because you guys were kind of more playing in the startup world. That's something that's like, it's almost like a swing for the fence attempt, right? And, it's high octane, it's startup culture, I'm sure. It's all of these things. What did you learn from that time about those type of businesses, those type of attempts, those type of ideas? Because I think those ideas are really sexy and exciting, but you being someone who was literally probably making, at first small money as a pro skater, and then a little bit better, but just being really frugal and saving and building up your cash. And then you're going like, oh, we're going to get up and try to hit a grand slam right here. And so it's a total change in thesis, in, tell me a little bit about that, like that shift in mentality and then that time that you spent doing that.
So it's a great question. It was a different strategy. If you kind of touched on the risk element to it. It was a type of investment that we either saw great return or everybody lost all their money, right? That's a high risk, high reward. So, in that, the amount of money I put in as far as my startup capital was an amount that I could lose. And that's something that I just rarely talk about on this. But if St. Archer would have failed and my initial investment that I put in for the startup phase was gone, it wouldn't have had a great impact on my portfolio. I would have still been able to continue. So when it comes to something like a high risk, I just only allocate a certain percentage of my portfolio to go to that. And it's small. It's like 5-6%. So that's one element to it. Two, with St. Archer, it was at that time especially, but I still do this now, I look for ways in which I can see a return that might not only be monetary. And what I mean by that was with St. Archer, I kind of looked at it as, I'm starting a brand that can take myself and how I'm viewed to a different place. Right now I'm a business owner, and part of that business, we're going to market. I'm now going to have a new company that's able to market myself. Like I will see a return from that. Even if the company doesn't pan out, I had this idea that it will make me a larger business professional, social media following. There will be some type of windfall of return that would happen. And then there was a part of it also, like truthfully, like dude, we were kind of naive. Like, it was like two skaters and a surf filmmaker that are optimistic people that believe that we could accomplish anything. So there was some part of that were like the lack of experience and complete confidence in ourselves worked out. Where, now Paul and I talk about it, it's like knowing what we know, and not only everything that went into making it successful, but the amount of risk that went into that. I don't know if we would have done it again. you know,
Right.
like there's some component where it's just like, there's beauty in just being willing to just go for things, you know?
Right. It's like dumb luck. Um, that's interesting because, and it's funny because with what you're doing now with Commune, obviously you have your brilliant investor partners, you have your ability to market, and your the strength of your network and all of these things. And obviously it's a massive idea, and I'm, as we've gotten to know each other, I'm starting to understand it better. And but are you still playing in that 5 to 6% thing where you are going, it's almost like a venture. I look at something,
Yeah.
St. Archer wasn't a venture deal, but it's like kind of, right? It's like, I mean,
St. Archer. So I have a certain percentage that I'll allocate to something like a St. Archer that I'm hands off in. It's just, there's a startup and I believe in it. I'm going to put money towards it. There's a certain percentage I have that's allocated towards that. I view the part of investing in myself a little bit differently, where like with Commune, it's different. I mean, real estate, I think just as an investment, as far as like risk goes, it's a different type of risk, but I'm putting way more than 5% into building this business. And that's just because I know what I can do with it, and I know the return I'll have because I'm involved in it, you know?
right.
And I'm in a different place now too. It's like, when we started St. Archer, I didn't know much at all. It's like, that was 8 years ago of just being, a lot's happened since then. So I have a greater confidence in myself as well. But to follow something like Commune is a totally different risk than something like St. Archer.
Right. Do you want to talk a little bit about Commune and give us like the little like elevator pitch, or just whatever you got, the vibe?
The elevator pitch, Commune. Well, before I even go into the pitch, Commune is like my most favorite thing I've ever done by far. And it's really, I know the impact Randy had on myself. It changed everything for me. My outlook, my strategy, the position I was in after skateboarding, the position I'm going to be in after this, it greatly benefited my life. And with Commune, not only the people that are involved in our company as far as investors, but even people that are following the brand through social media, I'm seeing, their kind of belief system and knowledge of investing change the same way mine did when Randy came into my life. And it's so cool to watch. I'm getting so much fulfillment out of it. And then to have people, we're up to, gosh, man, in our new fund, we have about 80 investors. So it's like, dude, a lot of those, oh, did my daughter just pop in? A lot of those investors, like, dude, they're athletes that have, oh, thank you. Can I open it after this? Okay, thanks, cutie. Sorry. A lot of the investors are athletes that, hey, okay, you take them in. I'll come into there right when I'm done, okay? A lot of the athletes that invested with us, this is their first time investing in anything. Like, they had no investment knowledge. So like to be a part of like helping, like Randy did myself, it's like I'm honored and blessed and thankful to be part of this community, but from like an elevator pitch, like it's simple as this.
Sorry,
Dude,
I even positioned it like that.
Look, we're a company. It's more of like a community of people that are dedicated to better themselves financially and have a belief system that this is a group sport and that we are better together. And so we have a belief system that, like, the more the merrier, and let's all go get this, and let's all put ourselves in a position of being able to choose to work and not have to work. And that is our mission. It's let's let's accomplish this for as many people in our community as possible.
Right. That's a lot of the reason why I'm doing this podcast too, is just to pass that rope back to like the next generation, you know, because that experience is just so invaluable when it comes to like, or so valuable, like just the experience, making mistakes, doing it, learning about it. Yeah. What you said, even there's just little gems in there, which like seemingly sometimes I think I understand and would know, but when you were talking about tax returns, it was just such a bar. You can you repeat that really quick so we have that on?
Yeah, the idea that we think a tax return is like a present or like a free shopping spree.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying is, a lot of people look forward to a tax return because it's at the end of the year a way to either catch up on some debts we have or to pay for this trip that we've been wanting to go on, or it's more of a like, hell yeah, right? But we have a false idea of what we're trying to accomplish. And the true goal to a tax return should be, you don't get any money and you don't pay any money. It's been perfectly paid. And one thing we forget is when we get a tax return, it's our money, right? We just basically overpaid and they've been holding our money for us. And then at the end of the year, they go, there you go. And so, it's this idea that we're lending them money at 0% interest rate and then we just go spend it anyway. But that's a lot of money that you could put to use to better your situation. So
right. And are they earning interest on it? Is the IRS earning interest on it? Probably, right? To a degree.
I don't know if they are or not.
That would be horrible.
Know.
That would be horrible.
I don't know. But nonetheless, you're not. And our goal should be earning interest. If we're lending money out, we're making money on it, right? So that's just an instance where we're not, and then we end up spending it. So I was basically just saying it's better to find the exact amount you have to pay, and then the secret becomes that extra money you get every month. Maybe it's an extra $250, $300 a month. Don't spend it. Don't add expenses. Now put that into your savings, investment, etc. That is money that is used for your future, not for your expenses.
Right. Well, thanks, Mikey. I appreciate it, man. I feel like there's so many, this conversation could just keep rolling. There's so many things that I would love to dive into with you, but I appreciate your time and value your time. So
we'll just have to do it again.
Right. We need to go around to, we'll get some feedback on this, find out what people want us to learn from you. And obviously in the meantime, they can follow Commune Capital on Instagram. And
that's right. And I'm going to see you next week. We are doing a film on you.
Let's do it. We got to make it fly if we can.
We will.
Okay. Dope.
All right, brother.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Peace.